Trending on the internet is Epstein and some files that came out about the saga involving a defamation case between Virginia Giuffre and Ghislaine Maxwell, who was an associate of Jeffrey Epstein, who is dead. And of course, Epstein is known for having networks with very powerful people, and also being convicted of sex trafficking down in Florida, and then later being arrested and his house being essentially raided and a lot of evidence being taken out of the house, and then Jeffrey Epstein being found dead in a holding cell after being beaten up by somebody, and the coroners have ruled that homicide. But a lot of people have been, I guess, in a way, made aware of this story because of just how scandalous it is and some of the big names that come up in all of this. And there's a lot of names. All right, I'm not going to necessarily jump into all the instances that Bill Clinton's name was brought up, or Alan Dershowitz's name was brought up, or Kevin Spacey's name was brought up, or former New Mexico governor, Bill Richardson's name was brought up. A whole bunch of people's names are brought up in these documents. Now, this is not the flight logs, and if you recall, those flight logs are still very much something people want to get their hands on. Why do they want flight logs? Because it shows who was on the plane with Jeffrey Epstein going to his private island, where it's believed there was sex trafficking going on with underage people. So clearly there's something going on here that's deeper and more sinister that people are going to be looking for. But the announcement of this release of documents, people assumed it would give a definitive list of people who took the plane, for instance. That's not the case. This really is just 1,000 pages of 40 different exhibits in a defamation case against Ghislaine Maxwell, filed by Virginia Giuffre, a victim of Epstein's trafficking. And in that, you do have some fascinating findings. And again, you can find this all over the internet, people posting the documents. I did go officially to the Pacer page and downloaded these documents and went through and did some keyword searches. But in one in particular, several documents pops up the name Pritzker. Not J.B. Pritzker, not the Illinois governor, but his cousin, Thomas Pritzker. So let's take a look here. If you follow me on X, just search Bishop on Air. You can connect with me that way. But here you can see in a deposition of Joanna Joberg that was released yesterday in the defamation case, Giuffre versus Maxwell. Joberg is asked if they had met several people, all right, and including Tom Pritzker. If you look at the deposition here, it says, did you meet Al Gore? No. Alan Dershowitz? No. Les Wexner? No. Tom Pritzker? No. Kevin Spacey? No. So, just a name being brought up does not in any way allay some kind of guilt, right? And these are all just depositions. This is not actual findings by a jury with charges that were presented. This is just a deposition, a lawyer sitting down and asking questions to somebody on the record and sworn in. So, a victim of Epstein's trafficking, saying that they hadn't met Al Gore, they hadn't met Alan Dershowitz, they hadn't met so-and-so, including they have not met Tom Pritzker. But if you look even further into other documents, and in particular, the deposition of Virginia Giuffre, she is asked specifically about the Tom Pritzker. And if you look again, follow me on Twitter, I did single this out. It goes on to have Giuffre explain that they feel like, they had this happen. I'd say, just reading this through, talks about, somebody else they had met, goes even further. I've met a lot of very high, powerful people, and I wasn't just introduced to them as who they are. It's only going back through photos and time to be able to realize who they are and what they are now, Giuffre said. So it's hard for me to distinguish who I've actually met and when and where I've met them. So the question from the attorney was, so to your knowledge, you've met one foreign president. To my knowledge, yes. And is there anything that might change your knowledge at a different time? She goes on to answer that question. All right. And then the attorney asks, all right, well, if I was to ask you the question, how many times you had relations with Tom Pritzker, do you know what that question means? I believe so. All right. The attorney asks. And what's the answer to that question? I believe I was with Tom once. So that's an interesting finding there in the documents. Now, this was something else that was brought up in a couple of different instances from a different deposition where you had attorneys asking about the owner of a large hotel chain, and that's some people jumping to the conclusion that is Tom Pritzker, and it asks, when did Ghislaine Maxwell send you to have sex with the owner of the large hotel chain? And somebody else, jumping in and asking the question again, where were you sent to have relations with the owner of a large hotel chain by Ghislaine Maxwell? So again, some of the questions being objected to, but it seems that several times. Here we go. This is fascinating too. Where did you have relations with the owner of a large hotel chain in France around the time of Naomi Campbell's birthday party? That's fascinating to see these types of questions come up in several, instances of a large hotel chain owner. So these are just, again, snapshots of depositions in a long case of defamation from Virginia Jeffery against Ghislaine Maxwell serving time. But we don't necessarily have that definitive list of, people who may be implicated in this. Now, I did go back into my archives and the work I do with the Center Square. I've been there since 2017, probably even 2014. Oh my gosh. So that's my full-time gig, right? And I remember back in 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker was actually asked about Thomas Pritzker being named in this cloud of different names associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And again, this was back in 2019 when Tom Pritzker's name was first brought up. But now we see in these documents that were released yesterday, where there was smoke, at least according to the deposition, there was some illicit activity involving the relations of this individual and a person under the age. So here's Governor Pritzker back in 2019 being asked if Tom Pritzker should step down from his position in the large hotel operations.
Thomas Pritzker, who I believe, if I see your family tree, is an older cousin of yours, he was implicated in the documents that came out over the weekend saying that he had solicited texts from
and again,
Jeffery Epstein.
This is 2019.
As a member of the Pritzker family, would you call that he stepped down as CEO?
First of all, I was unaware if he knew Jeffrey Epstein at all, and as you know, I do not. At this moment, I just say that I think that justice needs to be pursued here. There, of course, were some terrible things that were alleged here that Jeffrey Epstein seems to have done. And so I hope that the justice system will pursue the allegations that were made to the fullest extent of the law and make sure that the victims get the justice that they deserve.
So again, Governor J.B. Pritzker being asked way back in 2019 about this. Now new documents have come out. Will he be asked the same question again if, Thomas Pritzker should be held accountable outside of, any kind of federal prosecution or criminal prosecution, but when it comes to being part of the hotel chain oversight and such. So clearly fascinating to see that. A lot of attention's on the files, but I hope people better understand at least what the files actually are, right? Because they're not necessarily something that is the end-all be-all of this story. There's going to be a lot more to be said about all of that. All right. Again, like, subscribe, follow along each and every weekday morning. Illinois focused here, right? I'm a State House reporter. I go to the Illinois State House. I track legislation. I report it out, and each and every weekday morning when they're in session, I'll be doing that. In the meantime, lots of other things going on, from the ongoing migrant situation to the gun ban litigation and other stories that may pop up. So if you want to get at least plugged in a bit into what's going on here in Illinois, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share it with your friends. All right. All I'm doing is I'm just putting out info. I'm not necessarily leaning one way or the other or any way. I'm just giving you guys what you, at least I think you should know. All right, so have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. Again, like, subscribe, and follow along. All right, bishoponair.com.